Listen very carefully and follow my instructions. Prepare your brain for the Cortex Labs Nootropics podcast.
I gotta tell you, being an entrepreneur, I will not go through the rest of my career without taking nootropics. Aniracetam, paracetam, modafinil, Nupep, uridim monophosphate. I mean, phenylparacetam, forget it. You can always have a better brain.
The Cortex Labs Nootropics podcast is about to begin.
Episode number 79 of the Cortex Labs Nootropics podcast. This one is going to be outside. I am literally on the front porch of my apartment. So you're going to hear cars coming by, but I think that kind of adds to the ambiance. Thanks so much for listening. This is called 15 Nootropics that stack great with ALCAR. And I kind of wanted to just do this podcast because we talk about so much on the Cortex Labs Nootropics podcast and all of our channels, but what we don't do, certainly there's endless amounts of stacks that one could divulge, and we talk about them. But breaking down an individual compound, like let's just take paracetam, for example, and then going everything that stacks with paracetam and then encompassing that in one giant post is not only super valuable, but it concentrates a lot of dense information that is usable and applicable for a lot of folks into a short period of time. So that's what we're going to do with this podcast, okay? Before we get to that, we're going to talk about the specials that are going on at the Cortex Labs website with our stuff. Basically, 6 products support this podcast. Here they are. Number 1, the Cortex stack. We've got our own nootropic stack. It's called Cortex. It's exceptionally powerful in the eyes of our users. The gist of it is I was pretty PO'd at the quality, right, and the strength of the nootropic stacks that were out there, like the pre-made stacks that existed when I was into building a stack. I'd been taking nootropics at the time for 6 or so years, and I was like, I need to make something like really great. I need to figure something for myself that's really great. And then, I got the bug to turn it into a commercial global nootropic product, and that is Cortex. You can buy a bottle of what's being called the only pre-made nootropic stack that works at livecortex.com. Right now, the special is if you use the coupon code 5, F-I-V-E, you can get a bottle of Cortex for $25, okay? This is the 25th of June. This is going to last 7 days from now, which is either the 2nd of July or somewhere around the 31st. Maybe it's the 1st of July. It's 7 days from the 25th. You can get it for $25. Get that at livecortex.com. If you're new to nootropics, we have a book that you should read. It teaches you everything. It's called Smarter, Better, Faster. Get that at livecortex.com. And if you need my help personally on anything related to nootropics, we have a consulting service. It is a 40-minute call with me, 15 additional email correspondence. This is a Skype call with me on nootropics. You can ask me anything. A lot of people just drill me with questions relating to nootropics, and that's very fun. We have 3 more products. Those are basically specialty nootropic stack lists with Nupep and racetams and a bunch of other stuff, and you can get all that stuff at livecortex.com. And one more thing, guys, those of you that listen to the podcast here that might not check us out elsewhere, I need you to like us on Facebook, facebook.com/CortexStack, facebook.com/CortexStacks is where we are at, just how it sounds, Cortex Stacks on Facebook. We post a lot of our stuff there, just like cool videos, nootropic stuff, stack information, everything you can think of there. Like us there on the good old Facebook, and check us out on the web at livecortex.com/blog. Okay, 15 nootropics that stack great with ALCAR. I'm going to run through the compounds themselves, and then I'm going to give you the stacks that they stack with. I'm going to give you the entire stack, the ALCAR part of it, and then the other compounds that stack with ALCAR, okay? So just putting it in a simple, super simple format, starting from number 1, here we go. Number 1 is CDP choline. CDP choline is otherwise known as citicholine. I think the chemical name of it is cytidine 5-diphosphocholine. And CDP choline is a building block to a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. That's a focus and memory neurotransmitter. But it also modifies receptor sites for dopamine, which basically enhances the signal strength of dopamine and makes the accompanying brain states like motivation more powerful when you take it. So it's a double kind of thing. You get memory, focus, verbal fluency, brain fluidity, and you get motivated when you take CDP choline. Stacking with ALCAR is something that CDP choline does particularly well. And what I found over the years is that the best combination that is like generally applicable to most folks, which is what this whole list is going to be, is 300 milligrams ALCAR, 80 milligrams CDP choline. Okay. Now there's a lot you could add to that. I mean, you could add a B complex, you could add DHA, you could add both, you could add uridine to that. But as a standalone, that combination is a pretty good combination. Okay. Number 2, Number 2 is uridine monophosphate. Uridine is it's like a super nootropic. It's the kind of nootropic that you want to take if you don't want to take anything else. You take it with like a B complex, and even like some ALCAR or choline source at very low doses. And it does everything. It's verbal fluency, mental energy, motivation, brain fluidity, memory. It's a very, very powerful compound, uridine monophosphate. The stuff is amazing. The dose range is 25 to 250 milligrams on the high end. And again, it's a super nootropic. It's the basis for our stack Cortex, and it's exceptionally powerful. Here's the stack with ALCAR. It's 350 milligrams ALCAR, 150 milligrams uridine monophosphate. That alone is going to turn on some good brain performance for a lot of folks. Number 3, oxiracetam. Oxiracetam is a powerful focus-inducing racetam nootropic compound. That's dose range it's hard to say. 200 on the very low end, about 1,500 on the high end. It's a mainly memory and focus inducing racetam nootropic, but it's very stimulatory also. Here's the stack. 500 milligrams ALCAR, a gram of oxiracetam, and then an optional choline source. So with the most racetams, you got to take a choline source because they burn up extra acetylcholine, which is, again, just a neurochemical in the brain. These racetams put that chemical into use. That's why they work so well. And you sort of got to supply the brain with a little bit of extra choline to make acetylcholine when it's being burned up by a racetam. Number 4 is the compound L-theanine. L-theanine is a very calming amino acid. You can find it in green tea. And studies demonstrate that it actually induces a brain state called the alpha brain state. And the alpha brain state is no more than a state that's super calm and is what you get into when you meditate. And the way you measure that is by measuring electrical frequency and activity in the brain. So theanine, demonstratively does this. It's very calming, and we call it a balancer stack at Cortex Labs. It's a balancer nootropic compound, rather, in that you could put it with stimulants, and it balances the effects of the stimulants out to make a good synergistic combination. So the combination is this: 500 milligrams ALCAR, 250 milligrams of theanine. Okay. Number 5 is the compound theacrine. Number 5 on what you can stack with ALCAR that stacks really great is theacrine. Theacrine is a caffeine analog. It's a sister of caffeine. Very powerful. Much more powerful than caffeine. Requires less of a dose. Has a longer half-life. It's a super clean version of caffeine. I don't know why people aren't talking about it as much. And it stacks well with a whole lot of stuff, including racetams. But definitely ALCAR, and here's the dose. 350 milligrams ALCAR, 125 milligrams theacrine. Now, I hope you're writing this down, or you can come back and reference this, because I'm giving you 15 stacks right now that you can take that'll induce good brain performance for most folks. And if it isn't exactly perfect, you can modify the doses and very small milligram increments and get a pretty significant benefit. I've been experimenting with this stuff with all of what you see here for probably about, I don't think there's anything on here that I haven't experimented for the entire time, probably 8 to 10 years as an estimate, okay? Number 6, piracetam. Piracetam, as some of you probably know, but if you don't, is really the initial racetam smart drug that came out, is probably the most studied, optimizes memory, focus, verbal fluency, brain fluidity by modifying acetylcholine receptors and improving blood flow and oxygen to the brain, to brain cells. The dose range is 1 to 4 grams. And how you take this stack is 4 grams of piracetam and 500 milligrams of ALCAR. And then, again, with an optional choline source, alpha-GPC, choline bitartrate, or CDP choline, which act, again, as precursors or building blocks to the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, because piracetam will also put that neurotransmitter into use a little bit more, so you kind of need to replenish it in most cases when you take it. God, there's a lot of cars out here. I hope you guys are sticking with me. Thanks so much for sticking with me. Number 7, coliracetam. Coliracetam is another racetam nootropic compound. It works differently than other racetams because it basically just improves the way your brain synthesizes acetylcholine, this focus neurotransmitter, from its building block called choline. It does that through a process called high affinity choline uptake, and it basically improves that process. It's a very interesting compound. I love the stuff, frankly. The dose range is 5 to 50 milligrams, and the stack is 30 milligrams of coliracetam and 300 milligrams of ALCAR, and with an optional choline source to add to that stack. It's up to you. Some people need choline when they take racetam. Some people don't. It all really depends. If you truly want to find out whether you do or not, or what the difference is, or why people need it versus not, you have to read Smarter, Better, Faster. That's our book on nootropics, and you got to read it 10 to 15 times. Number 9 is a compound called ALCAR calamus. ALCAR calamus is, to put it very simply, an herb that improves verbal fluency for a lot of folks. Okay? It's pretty powerful. There's a bit of a caveat. We've talked about this in a recent video, and that caveat is that one of its metabolic byproducts, it's called B-arnosine or arsenine or something to this effect, has been demonstrated to be carcinogenic in the intestines of rats. Okay, it's basically facilitated tumors in rats. So that's something you want to take sparingly, because it's carcinogenic. But again, you want to understand that alcohol is also carcinogenic, and people drink alcohol every day and don't get cancer. It's all about taking it in context and understanding how to use it. The dose is the following: 200 milligrams of ALCAR calamus, 400 milligrams of ALCAR. Number 10, alpha GPC. Alpha glycerol phosphorylcholine is a bioavailable, which means it just absorbs very quickly and it's like super available to your body and brain, crosses into this thing called the blood-brain barrier, which gives you an acute neurological effect. Source of choline, and choline becomes acetylcholine through a variety of metabolic processes in the brain. And again, acetylcholine is a focus and memory neurotransmitter. The dose, combining it with ALCAR, the best dose anyway, is 75 milligrams of alpha GPC and 350 milligrams of ALCAR. Moving right along to DMAE. DMAE is otherwise known as dimethylaminoethanol, and DMAE is an acetylcholine building block too, but it works through some different mechanisms. Basically, the order with which it creates acetylcholine is different, and it engages different brain pathways to reach acetylcholine. So it is different. It's not particularly better than alpha GPC or CDP choline or other choline sources. It's just very unique in that sometimes taken, it gives you a bit of a different effect, frankly a little bit more potent of effect for me, and I think for a lot of folks, than alpha GPC or CDP choline. Dose is the following: 50 milligrams DMAE, 500 milligrams of ALCAR. Number 12 is a research chemical called PRL-853, and what the anecdotal on PRL-853 is that is a very strong, it's like a super potent memory enhancing compound. So it literally will help folks. This is no BS. It helps folks to remember large quantities of numbers at one time when otherwise they wouldn't be able to. Folks typically can do pretty well at remembering 6-7 numbers, like a phone number. Take PRL 853 in good enough quantities, which is like 5 to 10 milligrams, and a lot of folks, not everybody, but a lot of folks report being able to remember 20 numbers, 25 numbers, right? Just like being able to run through IQ tests and perform better, being able to run through tests similar to IQ tests, like general technical tests, which is the kind of test that you take in the ASVAB, which is a test that you take when you're entering the United States military to see what your effective educational capacity is. It's a powerful compound. The stack is 5 milligrams of PRL 853 and 250 milligrams of ALCAR. Number 13 is Noopep. Noopep is a Russian acetylcholine and cholinergic receptor modifying smart drug. It also has been demonstrated to upregulate nerve growth factor, which is basically a reparative protein in the brain that allows the brain to repair brain tissue, and facilitates neuronal survivability. It's a powerful compound. Dose range is 5 to 30 milligrams. And the stack is 12 milligrams of Noopept and 500 milligrams of ALCAR with an optional choline source. I think that it seems clear to me and to a lot of other people that Noopept does burn up some extra choline in the brain. So you want to supply some choline for most folks, even if it's a small quantity, while you take Noopept. Number 15 is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an Ayurvedic herb. It was just like an herb from a class of medicine called Ayurveda, which is very calming. It sort of tones down the entire stress response in the body. It does that via being an adaptogen, which is just a term that describes compounds that allow your body to better respond to stress. And the real mechanism of action is that it lowers cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So here's the dose. A gram of ashwagandha, which will totally like calm you down, and then 600 milligrams of ALCAR, which will sort of speed you up. But the balance, again, with the idea of the balancer, is really quite remarkable. I mean, it's a good stack to take if you want to get some stuff done and kind of be in a cool, calm, focused state. Number 15, and this is the last stack, is alpha-lipoic acid. Alpha-lipoic acid is a massive antioxidant. The great part about it is it crosses into the brain through the blood-brain barrier and acts as an antioxidant in the brain. It also increases mildly brain acetylcholine, and it also acts as an agent to increase brain glutathione. Glutathione, to put it very simply, is a major detox chemical that your body uses to get rid of foreign substances that are toxicants or toxic to your body. Okay, the stack is 200 milligrams ALA, 500 milligrams acetyl L-carnitine, or ALCAR. Okay, I'll finish on saying, so write those stacks and come down, write this stuff down, listen to this podcast 100 times, whatever, a couple times, write it down, refer to it. This is 79 of the Cortex Labs Nootropics podcast. Like, I think a lot of people, what they do with nootropics is they get very overwhelmed by large quantities of compounds. I mean, there's 100 like known nootropic compounds that people can take, and it's easy to get overwhelmed by all of them and be like, well, what should I take? I'm going to try every one. But I just gave you 15 stacks that if you cycle appropriately and you use these stacks, you got a whole bunch of variety here with a bunch of different compounds. And you can make a lot of good stacks as a result. Okay, I just realized I forgot one. You're probably wondering, that was 14. This was number 8, and I think I skipped number 8, so I'm going to just give you number 8 right now. And that is L-tyrosine. Tyrosine is a building block to dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. So basically makes you motivated and very alert. Stacking it with ALCAR, the best dose that I found is 300 milligrams of L-tyrosine and 500 milligrams of ALCAR. Okay? So back to the idea of all these stacks. I mean, there's so much different stuff I just gave you. Embedded in it is the methodology of keeping things relatively low dosed, or like basically perfectly dosed. People make the mistake of high dose in nootropics and always messes them up, gives them side effects, or doesn't give them the desired result. Most younger people don't need a significant degree of neurotransmitter modification via nootropics. They can get a strong bump above baseline by following the instructions that we put out in podcasts like this and in our nootropics books like Smarter, Better, Faster, the Racetam God Guide, the New Pep Pro Stack List, the Beginner's Guide to Aniracetam, and the Nootropic Stacks for the Business Professional book. Okay, so that's all. For more stacks like this, I mean, we got tons of them in all of those digital books that I just mentioned. Go to livecortex.com, buy one of them. If you're new to nootropics, the best book to buy is Smarter, Better, Faster. If you're just looking at, well, which one should I buy? Just buy that. If you want a bunch of very powerful Racetam stacks, like you find Racetams work well for you, you need to process and do memory, you're a programmer or something like that, then just buy the Racetam God Guide. If you're a business person, buy the Nootropic Stacks for the Business Professional book. If you like New Pep, buy the New Pep Pro Stack List. And if you like Aniracetam, if you're like, I know some guys are like super Aniracetam centric, but that's all they really take. Then buy the Beginner's Guide to Aniracetam, because that thing has a bunch of Aniracetam stacks in it. We've got a stack, it's called Cortex right now. It's on sale for $25 using the coupon code 5 FIVE at livecortex.com. Look, I mean, get a bottle of what's being called the only pre-made stack that actually works at livecortex.com. The stuff is powerful in the eyes of our users. I mean, you're going to hit me up and email me, Ryan at livecortex.com, by the way, and go, dude, this is something else. If you need my help personally on anything related to nootropics, we have a consulting service. It's a 40-minute call with me. So it's a Skype call with me and 15 additional email correspondence. Typically what we help people do is just find stacks that work well for them. In a lot of cases, we'll answer questions for 40 minutes on people that really need an expert to tell them about nootropics, the questions that they have particularly. It's very useful for a lot of folks. I mean, we got doctors, people that are training to be doctors, basically everybody else in between that does the consult and ends up very, better. I mean, very better. A lot better in the realm of knowledge, and then with applicable, useful information, just like actionable information they can engage in relation to taking nootropics to get particular brain states for the things they have to do in their lives. Get all that stuff at livecortex.com. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. livecortex.com/blog. Giant blog for nootropics information. That's where you'll find this podcast. And then please like us on Facebook, facebook.com/CortexX. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you next time.